At Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform, we bring clarity to how policy shapes real lives across Oklahoma. And this is Unintended Consequences. This podcast is about what happens after decisions are made. Not what is intended, but what actually happens in people's lives and communities. In a state with one of the highest incarceration rates in the country, those outcomes matter. We'll be talking with people who have lived experiences and with leaders and organizations working on the ground in the communities across Oklahoma. Each episode, we'll take a closer look at the patterns, what the data shows, and what it means, and how it connects to stability. Because when we understand the full impact of our decisions, we have an opportunity to build something stronger. Hello, my name's Mike Shelton, and this is Unintended Consequences, hosted by Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform. I'm your host, and today we have an amazing guest with us with the Oklahoma Alliance for Recovery Services here in the state of Oklahoma, Miss Amanda Coldiron. We appreciate you being with us today, and we're so glad to have you on the show. Our listeners might not have ever heard much about the Oklahoma Alliance for Recovery Resources. I apologize. Y'all have a long name.
That's okay. We do.
But y'all call yourselves OKARR. So if anybody hears us saying OKARR, it's OKARR.
Yes.
And how long have you all been around?
So we've been a certifying body in Oklahoma since about 2020. So for that long, we have been certifying recovery homes across the state.
Well, you talked a little bit about your mission, and I'm sure it's going to be the first time that some people have never heard about OKARR. Can you tell us about your mission and what you do?
Sure. Our mission and vision is to ensure that every Oklahoman has a safe place to recover from substance use. We certainly know that substance use goes hand in hand with mental health disorders sometimes, and there's co-occurring issues that go on. So our goal is really to ensure that Oklahomans have a safe, secure place, a good, solid environment to start their path to recovery on.
Let me just say, as many shows as we've done, there is one word there's a couple words that have stuck out over and over and over. And those two words that I have heard over and over and over is respect and dignity. And those creating these homes gives those people that are that need that help respect and dignity. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Not only respect and dignity within the home, but for the individuals themselves is just critical. Many times people in recovery haven't had respect and dignity for themselves, and it's hard for them to find it for themselves when they're not in an environment that provides it. So it's imperative that these recovery homes are really producing that environment, from the beds to the pictures on the walls to policies and procedures that help keep things safe for people to do well and thrive within those homes.
And before we started today, we talked about how there's really, sometimes you'll hear a statement saying there's a thin line between one thing and the other. Well, of course, Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform deals with ending mass incarceration. And there's really not much line between the work that you do and the work that we do. We are sister organizations, and the success of our organization depends on the success of those people that are coming out of your program. You'd agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, recovery support and recovery housing really should be more of a public health strategy than a afterthought of incarceration. People can't just get out of incarceration, out of prison, and come back to families that they came from and neighborhoods that they came from. They have to rebuild so much, and that entails self-worth and employment skills, job skill, education. It all plays into it, and really having that stable home environment is what's going to provide it, and being able to look forward to that and not as an afterthought is something that we really, really in our criminal justice system need to get a handle on, so that people can be more successful when they discharge.
So let's talk about recovery housing and why is it important? Why does it matter?
Sure. Recovery housing is important because it provides peer support, especially for our purposes, for OKARR certified homes. It provides peer support. It's all based off of what we call the social model, and that social model provides peer support, accountability, lots of things that maybe folks don't have or have never had before in their addiction and their upbringing, in their incarceration. They've just not experienced it before. So having those things built into a home that you're going to live in is something that a lot of people just have never experienced before.
So, Amanda, so how do you define recovery?
I think recovery, and it's really important, it's a very divisive topic for a lot of folks. I've heard a lot of people refer to us as the Bible Belt and the buckle of the Bible Belt, and I 100% agree. A lot of times recovery is, a lot of times people want to dictate what recovery looks like for people. And recovery housing, it's very important for recovery housing to allow people to find that path for themselves, whether it is faith-based, whether it's secular, whether it's through Wellbriety or Celebrate Recovery. It's so critical that people are able to have that opportunity to find that path themselves. And recovery housing, too, really is about opportunity. Opportunity exists in every aspect whenever, especially folks coming out of incarceration, not just them, but especially folks coming out of incarceration because they've never had that opportunity to have a solid environment where they are, celebrated for milestones and celebrated for their very even minuscule accomplishments.
Right.
They haven't experienced it before. And so recovery can be so many things.
Right. So, of course, you've had a million conversations, as have I had a lot of conversations. So many people, when I sat in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, there's so many people that believe that treatment ends or recovery ends when treatment ends. And why is housing such an important next step?
Right. I think it's important to really recognize that, obviously treatment, there's a lot of hard work for people whenever they go into treatment. But living sober really starts after treatment. You have to learn how to work sober, have a family sober, socialize sober, and all of those things have to have a foundation of a home environment. So it's critical that you get those skill sets built in your living situation to be a part of your recovery path. It's just critical.
Right. So what role does recovery housing play in preventing relapse and promoting long-term success?
Sure. So that looks like a lot of different things. It looks like peer support, mentoring. It looks like employment, stability, financial success, financial planning, and education. I mean, I come across a lot of folks that have, these days, showing my age, but, a lot of people don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know how to balance their bank account. And those are all just things that are not afforded to them in their addiction and incarceration, in a rough upbringing. They just don't know those things. So there are a lot of things that recovery housing can provide folks to help them on their path to recovery and be successful.
So how many recovery houses do we have in the state of Oklahoma?
So in the state of Oklahoma, there are a lot. OKARR itself certifies roughly 1,800 beds across the state. Our friends at Oxford House do a fantastic job too. I'm not overly familiar with their numbers, but they do a fantastic job across the country, but in Oklahoma too. We work great with them, being able to provide different pathways. OKARR certified homes and Oxford homes, they're two different models, but they run parallel to one another. So there are a lot of great people doing a lot of great things out there. They've learned we have operators that have learned how to really engage their communities, engage their businesses within their communities to provide things like financial accountability, financial management, and education through banks. volunteer services. So it's really, there's a plethora of opportunity for folks out there, but there are also some stumbling blocks. Incarceration definitely provides some barriers for folks. There's a criminal background. It makes it hard to find housing. That's why recovery housing for people that have an addiction issue is a good option for people that are going through reentry.
So let me ask you about recovery housing. Can you just kind of paint a picture what a recovery house looks like? And we'll just use in Oklahoma City or let's in any community. Is it just average person wanting to use their home for?
Yep, it can look like a lot of different things. It looks like any other house in a neighborhood. I have a recovery home in the neighborhood that I live in. You would never know it, and that's the point of it, is that it should be blended into a neighborhood just like any other house. Fair housing protects those folks that live in that house. It's not something that there are restrictions on. Some municipalities do have codes and code enforcement that operators will have to follow, but we don't see that too often. But it should be an at-home living environment that provides a safe, home-like environment.
So, and I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a minute because I know when I was in the House of Representatives, of course, a couple of these popped up and the neighborhood found out and it turned into not in my backyard type of situation. What would you tell that neighborhood if as somebody may want to create a recovery house?
Sure. We get that question a lot with NIMBY, not in my backyard, for people that aren't familiar with it. It is no different than knowing that the neighbor down the street got a DUI last week, or that John, your next door neighbor, has a substance abuse issue. It's no different other than you knowing that multiple people live in a household that have a substance use issue. They just happen to all be in one spot. So we do get that question a lot. We encourage our operators to be open with their neighbors, have a good neighbor policy, that it helps the residents of the home understand that, no loud music, don't hang out in the front yard, don't smoke on the porch, that type thing. There are standards, policies, and procedures in place that, we encourage our operators to be a good neighbor. But to those folks that are having those questions and having those complaints and those uneasy feelings, I think everybody understands that, but it's also an opportunity to know that people deserve that opportunity.
Right.
Everybody deserves an opportunity, and everybody has a history of something.
So what are some of the biggest recovery challenges facing Oklahoma today?
Incarceration. Incarceration. Lack of funding for recovery housing. In Oklahoma, most all dollars go to treatment. And that is the case in many states, not just Oklahoma, but in many states. There is no funding for recovery housing to speak of in Oklahoma. Very, very minute dollars.
So speaking to the people that are going to watch this or share this podcast, if someone had a home that they wanted to see about being a part of this program, how does that work?
Sure, they reach out to us, or sometimes if we know that they're doing great work in their community, we oftentimes will reach out to them, talk to them about what certification looks like, which is meeting national best practice standards. So most of those standards are what people are doing in their homes anyways, providing appropriate furnishings, policy and procedure, grievance policy, so that residents in the home have the opportunity to share concerns should they come up. Most people are doing all of those things anyways, but there is a list and application. We do on-site reviews. We do what we call technical assistance, where we walk them through the process. not just for certification, but throughout the entire time that they're certified. We do trainings. We provide on-site visits. We like to go out and visit our residents too. I say our residents, they're not ours. It's important to know that OKARR does not own or manage any of the properties. We just provide the certification.
Right.
So we work pretty closely with the operators day in and day out in ensuring that, if they have a problem coming up, that we can walk them through that process, and what a solid outcome will be, not only for them, but for the resident too.
What patterns do you see among people who are successful in recovery?
Being in a structured environment. And that's hard sometimes for a lot of folks because, a lot of feedback we get is I've always been told what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And I don't want anybody telling me that anymore. What they don't see it as, or maybe what they're not perceiving it as, is a mentorship. It's more of a burden to them. Mentorship in recovery housing is really about, hey, I've been through this. I've been in your shoes. I've experienced this. Let me walk you through what I experienced, and maybe you could have a better outcome. And that's really what recovery housing is about, and that peer-to-peer support. We really rely heavily on our residents and our operators to provide that environment for especially new folks coming in.
Is OKARR, do they pay the owner of the home, or is the resident responsible to pay the owner?
So the resident pays a program fee. It's just like any other recovery home. There's typically a weekly fee. Operators, we don't get into that. That's the operator, their business. They can but most times recovery homes across the state and the country, folks have the opportunity to pay on a weekly basis rather than a monthly basis, simply because most often they don't have a wage high enough to pay a full month's rent at a time.
Right.
So operators are generally pretty good about working with people to pay on a weekly basis, and that generally pays for their program fees, utilities. There are no extra fees. It's just a flat fee per week.
Right. And so the residents within the home have to go through certain steps every day, or weekly have to go through some type of AA or?
So yeah, some recovery support. So a lot of our operators will, if they're faith-based, some of our faith-based operators will require them to participate in classes for 6 weeks, 90 days, something that they decide on, an amount of time that they decide on. But most often, they're required to get a job within 2 to 3 weeks and start paying those weekly fees. It's all about financial stability and accountability. We often tell our operators, we do get some questions about, well, how are they supposed to be in recovery and do all these things and work and pay? And we have some pretty in-depth conversations about, this is life sober. You have to find a balance, and you have to help those residents find a balance. Now, it's those recovery homes that don't help provide that balance that you see a revolving door. So we really want to encourage our operators to provide those wraparound services, whether it's employment support, helping somebody get connected to education, rebuilding a relationship with their kiddos, anything like that.
And I know that you all give accreditation to the recovery houses, but let's just talk about the people that are living in there. What is an unsuccessful person that may be in one of those environments that may see themselves not have setbacks or setback in the recovery? Is there a pattern that you see when people have setbacks in their recovery?
It varies. A lot of times you'll see them start to slip. Maybe they're late coming in for curfew. Maybe they lost a job and then 2 jobs, and then they're all of a sudden hanging out with folks that from the past. And that's a big deterrent. You'll see a lot of operators that will, I hate to use the word restrict engagement with past acquaintances. Now we do like to try to, educate and encourage our operators. our job is not to control a resident in a recovery home. Our job is to provide support and guardrails.
Right.
So it's a pretty consistent conversation with operators about just being the support. We're not mom and dad. And I, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. People will either be in recovery or they won't.
Right.
So you can't want it more than they do. And oftentimes we find that as a struggle. But really helping our operators learn how to engage those residents and really get to the meat of the problem that they may be experiencing is really paramount. It's not as simple as saying, hey, go out and find a job. You need to get a job in 2 weeks. Well, maybe they don't have an education that allows them to read a job application, or maybe they don't know what to wear, or, it's the simple things that I think, in the busy hustle bustle of everyday life, we kind of look past. But, for people in recovery coming in to a house, it looks different. And especially folks coming out of incarceration. You may have somebody that's been in prison for 15, 20, 30 years. They don't even know how to pay at the pump for gas. So it looks very different. And depending on that resident, those conversations and that introduction to recovery housing should be very, very individualized.
Right.
To set them up for success.
We had the privilege of interviewing Glenn Simmons not long ago on this show, which he was in prison for 48 years, 18 days and 5 hours, I believe. I almost got it down to memory because that's the first thing that he shares. But he talked about how important it is to give those people coming out of incarceration situations, especially ones that have been there a long time. He was, of course, there 48 years and had to learn everything. He was a kid when he went in. You just
have to slow down and give people a minute to catch up and catch their breath and understand and really even find where they want to be. A lot of people don't know that they want to be in recovery. They know they want something different, but they don't know what that definition of recovery really is for them. And recovery is different for everybody.
Well, and that brings me to a question that I think is important to our audience is what is the difference between recovery residents and different from treatment?
Yeah, so treatment that's a great question. Treatment provides clinical support services. Recovery housing is not treatment. It is not. It is wraparound services, peer support, mentoring. It is very different. Very good question. We get that a lot, and we do hear a lot of that whenever it comes to funding. Well, you are getting funding. No, funding's going to treatment.
Right.
That's inpatient clinical support.
Right.
Definitely not recovery housing.
Right.
We actually even have a shirt that says recovery housing is not treatment.
Well, I need to get one of those shirts.
Yes.
If I have a home, and sounds like I'm going back to the same question. If I have a home, I can't just open it up. I need to make sure that I assume Oklahoma has all the standards set up for the National Association of Recovery Resources and OKARR? Actually,
no. So Oklahoma is not one of the states across the country that requires certification. Many states do, but Oklahoma is not one yet. I think we are moving towards that, but we're not there yet, and that'll take some legislative action and some advocacy. We know that there are a lot of really great operators out there doing great things that are not certified. By all means, they are. But we also know that there are more often than not folks that are not providing those safe environments for people to recover in. There's overcrowding. They're not carrying appropriate insurance on their homes. They're unsafe environments. There's no furniture, things like that. So, that's really what the advocacy is about, is providing and insisting that those opportunities exist for people that are looking for recovery.
Well, let me just share this with you. OCJR invites you to come to the Capitol with us. We love being at the Capitol and working with legislators to change the laws and educate legislators about what is happening in Oklahoma. So we invite you all to join us at any time. I'm glad you said that, because it's unfortunate to hear that that Oklahoma is not positioned well to protect families and neighborhoods. We need to make sure that we're using NARR standard and OKARR standard. And so I hope that at sometime in the near future, you look into creating a piece of legislation or working with legislators or having an interim study about ensuring that Oklahoma does the right thing, because it sounds like the right thing to do for our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. We have other affiliates across the country that, it has become mandatory that there is certification for all recovery homes. And there have been some struggles, but overall, it has worked well. It has worked best for the folks that are looking for that support. So we definitely want to move in that direction.
So, what makes a successful recovery home?
Sure. Successful recovery homes consist of sound structure. Of course, you're going to have your ups and downs, but having a solid policy and procedure in place that outlines things in a very transparent way, everything from what the program fees are to how to file a grievance, what your curfews are, what the financial expectations are, in a home-like environment. We actually, whenever we walk into a home, if it feels like a clinical setting, we stop right there and say, hey, let's talk about how we can lessen the feel of this clinical feel that's going on right now. We call it Martha Stewarding. So, sometimes we walk in and there's no pictures on the walls, or everything is gray, or there's no plants. We want it to be like your home, like you would walk into. And we really work hard with our operators on what that looks like. And they actually all do a very good job. I think in the beginning, a lot of operators are very scared almost as to what they should provide. And we just look at them and say, it's going to be okay.
Right.
It's going to be okay. We just want a house like any other house. And that includes a bath mat and a shower curtain and hand towels in the kitchen to dry dishes with. And
Right.
You just want people to feel at home, because that's when they're going to recover best, is when they are comfortable.
Right. I know you said that you all certified about 1,800 homes in the state of Oklahoma. Other organizations are also registering homes. Are we short? Do we need more?
We absolutely need more. So about 1,800 beds.
Okay.
Beds. So you can have an operator that has multiple homes. We have some operators that have 10 or 15 homes. And then we have some operators that have just one. So it really varies. We always need more. I would say that Northwest Oklahoma is very desolate in recovery housing and recovery support as a whole. Southeast Oklahoma is getting better, but the majority of our support system is southwest to northeast, kind of the I-44 corridor that goes crisscross across the state. But there will never probably be enough beds, unfortunately.
So we have talked about incarceration and those coming out of incarceration a lot. How often do you see recovery housing serving individuals with prior justice system involvement?
Quite a bit, but I would like to say not enough. I think that the majority of the time, people coming out of incarceration, and this is really, we see it a little bit more with men than we do women, are just ready to get back to life. They don't want a structured environment. They don't need anybody telling them what to do. So it's a bit of a struggle having those conversations with people that are still incarcerated but are getting ready to come out, and helping them understand that maybe a little bit of structure after such a long period of structure is a good stepping stone. So I would like to see more. There's a conversation that has been, bounced back and forth for a long time, whether or not recovery homes there should be recovery homes specific to people that are reentering. It's kind of a divisive topic. On one hand, you don't want to isolate them and keep people together that have that experience. You want to blend and share that mentorship and the peer-to-peer support. But on the other hand, I think it's important to recognize that it's important to understand where those individuals are coming from. You have people telling them when to get up, when to go to the bathroom, when to eat, when to go to work, all of those things. And sometimes it just takes a minute to get out of that phase. And it's a hot topic.
Institutionalization is real.
It is very real.
Yeah.
So I personally have been an advocate for it for a long time. We don't have to. I don't know that we have any homes in the state right now, certified anyways, that focus on that. But I sure would like to see them.
What are some unintended consequences when people leave incarceration without stable housing?
Returning to the justice system.
Yeah.
Returning to addiction, returning to unstable financial situation, and unhealthy relationships. I think that's something that we don't talk enough about is the unhealthy relationships. You go into incarceration and you walk right back out into what you came from, and that's not always a healthy spot. Because while people have been in prison, maybe they've made some changes for the better. And when they come out, when they turn back to what they came from, it can influence them quite a bit.
Absolutely.
If they're not solid in that foundation of the changes they've made. So we hate to see that. And I think that is one aspect that, is an opportunity for recovery housing operators, recovery housing as a whole, to really make an impact on people that are reentering, is having those conversations, volunteering with the Department of Corrections, or groups in general that work with justice involved. It's so important for people to know about opportunity. I know that we go into the prisons, have in the past, and had those conversations with folks and say, hey, what's your discharge plan? And they will immediately rattle off going back to,
same neighborhood,
Uncle Bob or
same
Aunt
neighborhood
Sue or
that
girlfriend.
got them in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can just see it all unraveling right in front of them. So, our hope is that more people will advocate for what a successful discharge from prison. That sounds funny, but a successful discharge and reentry might look like for somebody. And that is really from start to finish, everything from your discharge date to where you're going to go when you leave in your orange slides, all the way through. It's not just as simple as I'm going to get out, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get married, I'm going to do whatever. Let's slow down a second. What are you going to do for clothes when you get out?
Right.
So it's important to have those conversations and really help men and women understand the in-between period of getting back to life and just taking a moment.
And I'm kind of repeating and changing what you said, but I'm going to just ask you to agree or disagree with this statement and maybe offer some thought, is that these cities, state, county elected officials, leadership, community, neighborhoods, is that really having these recovery homes is really a public safety strategy. Would you agree with that?
It's a public health strategy.
Public
for sure.
health, okay.
Yeah, I strongly believe it's a public health strategy because, addiction is like having a diagnosis of anything else.
Right.
So it really needs to be a strategy for making people not just healthier, but more sound mental health wise, physically, relationship wise, being good moms and dads for our kiddos. All of those things play into it. And having a public health strategy for incarceration and reentry is critical, especially for Oklahoma, since we incarcerate at such a high level.
A high level. Uh, and you mentioned it. I just would like you to talk about it a little bit more. What role does employment play when you're in a recovery home?
Employment, sure. So a lot of times people will say to us, but we need people to focus on recovery and, finding themselves and everything that comes along with, independence. And we always say, but financial sustainability and accountability is part of recovery. Employment is in part of recovery. It has to do with self-worth too. There's so much self-worth that comes with having a job. It doesn't matter if it's at the fairgrounds or if it's at Burger King. Earning that paycheck does something for somebody. So it's important. And one thing I definitely want to mention, and we see this as a little bit more of a struggle with our men in recovery homes than women. Men want to come out and have their career job. They're going to be CEO of something. And we often say, hey, let's take a breath and let's just get started. And if that means working at Burger King in the drive-through 7 days a week, then that's okay. That's okay. Employment brings prosperity. Employment
Absolutely.
brings self-worth and job skill sets. You have to start somewhere. Everybody starts somewhere. And it's important too to remember that so many incarcerated individuals go straight from junior high to juvenile detention, high school to adult incarceration. So there's never really been an opportunity for them to develop those skill sets and those opportunities for themselves. They may not even know what self-worth looks like whenever it comes to financial sustainability. And getting that first paycheck really, really means a lot.
Right. So, talking about employment, can you just speak to our employers about the benefit to them by hiring somebody that might be in recovery?
Sure. We actually certify what's called a recovery-friendly workplace, and that is basically a second chance employer. So it is really important to know that even if you've got a tattoo across your face or running up your neck, that doesn't mean that you don't have worth and a skill set that your business can't be valued from. Stigma is such a thing. It's important to give people opportunity, and not just recovery housing, but recovery period is all about opportunity. So when someone walks into your business and fills out that job application, don't go at face value. A lot of times people don't look like what they can do. And that's really important. It's all about opportunity.
You talked about a little earlier about the stigma of being in recovery. My question is why is stigma so harmful?
For a lot of reasons, stigma is not what you are or who you have to be. Stigma is just a label that society slaps on us. Oftentimes not fair. I think about our women a lot that are in recovery housing, women that are incarcerated. I've met so many people, especially women, that have just made poor decisions that have affected them and their families for lifelong amounts of time. But that doesn't mean that's who you have to continue to be. But society shows otherwise. It's so unfortunate, and it's so important to overcome that. And recovery housing really provides an avenue for that mentorship to show that you can overcome stigma. It's just opportunity. It's such opportunity to overcome the barriers, the employment, the history that maybe you've done. I've talked with a lot of women over the years that they're uneasy about being in a recovery home because they've never been in a home that had curtains.
Right.
They've never been able to take a shower every night. They don't have clean clothes to wear because they've been on the street, or they've had to do things that they didn't want to do to support themselves or their kiddos. So it's heart-wrenching to see what stigma can do to people.
Right.
But important to know that it's an opportunity to be able to overcome that too.
So, what do you wish Oklahoma understood better about addiction and recovery?
That I think addiction is everywhere. It is so easy to become overwhelmed with something that makes us feel better, even if it's just short lived. Drugs and alcohol are, you know, are so devastating to not just individuals, but their entire family, to
Absolutely.
their entire family. And the consequences are so everlasting. Um, I think that Oklahoma needs to understand, and I hope will understand at some point, that recovery really is a path. I mean, it's not just a stop start. You give a pill and you feel better.
Right.
Addiction and recovery is oftentimes for a lot of people lifelong, and you have
Right.
to work hard at it. You really have to have those wraparound support systems for as long as you need them. And for some people, it's a short time, and for some people, it's forever, and that's okay. But the stigma that comes along with substance use alone and incarceration is huge
I
and so
love the way you,
debilitating.
I just love the way you, the words that you used. How does language shape public attitudes toward recovery?
Sure, we language is ever changing. Our verbiage is ever changing, both in the substance field and the mental health field. It seems like every year or two, there's a different way of saying things, and it's important that people acclimate to that. Now it's not just a relapse. We use return to use
Right.
because we don't want to label people, because it goes back to that stigma.
Right.
It's just like whenever you don't want to say that you have schizophrenia. It's you have a diagnosis of schizophrenia. You don't have to become what you're labeled as. So it's really important to use the correct verbiage so that it's not so demeaning
Right.
and paralyzing for people. I think paralyzing is a great word whenever we talk about substance use, because even whenever we are working with our operators for policy and procedure, when they're writing all of their rules and being transparent and everything, we encourage them to not use words like zero tolerance or you will be terminated from the program, things like that. I encourage operators to say, instead of saying you've been accepted into this program, just simply say, hey, we welcome you to our
Right.
house.
Right.
Doesn't that just feel so much better
It does.
than we've accepted you, like you filled out a job application? I think we need to get back to the people business, and language has a lot to do with that. Um, I, language language for me, I've worked in a lot of different settings, and I have seen the pain on someone's face and in their eyes whenever somebody says something to them that stings.
Right.
And you would never even know it if you weren't really honed in on it. So I really encourage folks to pay attention to what they're saying and how they're saying it,
Right.
and being sensitive to where someone's coming from.
And I always love to say, well, I don't love to say it, but I always tell people this is, oh, these are tough conversations. No, these are just real conversations that we have. But I mean, I appreciate the conversation. I just want to end on a couple questions about what gives you hope about Oklahoma's recovery community right now.
Because we see it every day. There's hope in every single day. In success stories, we see people from the little things of, hey, I got visitation back with my kid, to I got a driver's license, to I got my electrical license, to I bought a car. There's hope in all of those little milestones that people have never been recognized before. It's almost like aligning it with a regular family,
Right.
a general regular
Right.
family. You would celebrate birthdays, and you would celebrate your first job, your first paycheck, all of those type things. And people that are in recovery, they've never experienced that before. And whenever you go into a recovery home and you see, a cake and streamers and you say, "Hey, what's going on?" "Oh, Susie just had her first day of work today." That is empowering.
Right.
That is great. And it's still all these years later, this is my 24th year, that still gives me chills. Because you see the success of people and the hard work that they've put in, not just that, but that somebody is celebrating it, even if it's just one person. It's so huge. And you can just see people light up with that success. And it's so good to have people make those accomplishments.
Right. So if Oklahoma invested more deeply in recovery infrastructure, where would we be in 10 years?
Oh boy. We would see a lot more success employment wise. I would like to think that we would put a dent in incarceration. I would like to see that. That's probably a big ask, but I think Oklahoma has a long ways to go with its incarceration rate. But rebuilding families is so important. Really getting the job market boosted, but rebuilding families, having the education, and that doesn't mean college. Maybe it just means getting your GED.
Right.
It can look like a lot of different things, but I think if Oklahoma really invested in what recovery looks like, we would see a lot less large poverty-stricken areas because it's just a cycle. My mom used, her sister used, my dad used, so I'm going to use, that's what I
Right.
know, type thing. You have to break that cycle, whether it's addiction, whether it's incarceration, all of those things typically go hand in hand. And I
Right.
think if you start to touch one, it spreads like wildfire, but it is going to take a lot of work for Oklahoma.
So, of course, we work at the legislature, uh, working to pass laws all the time. What lessons from recovery housing should policymakers better understand?
That there are successes and there are improvements, and it does contribute to communities and the success of communities, not just job wise, education wise, but building families. It's one of the things that Oklahoma has come out recently and said is that Oklahoma is one of the best places to raise a family. So whenever we have successful recovery, people that are successful in recovery, you have better communities. You have stronger communities, stronger families, better employment, better financial sustainability. It all goes hand in hand.
At the heart of recovery is hope. I know you agree with that. What would you say that's to someone listening today who feels like recovery isn't possible for them?
I think I would say opportunity is there for everybody, even on the smallest scale. Recovery can look like a lot of different things, and it starts with just the smallest step. So maybe, I learned a long time ago, maybe it's one less drink today, or, one less trip to the casino. Maybe it's one less of anything. But there's opportunity and there's hope. But you have to surround yourself with the right people, because if you stay in the same spot, you're not going to find it.
Right.
So there's lots of opportunity out there, whether it's recovery housing or wraparound support through a treatment center or one of our great mental health providers that are out there. There's lots of different avenues, but there is hope always.
So, as we close, can you share with your clientele that may watch this how to get in touch with you all?
Sure. We have a great website. It's OKARR.org. It's OKARR.org. And our website will show all of our certified homes across the state, their contact information, or we also have our phone numbers listed on the website as well. You can reach out to us. We have a we have a pretty big footprint across the state, and we pride ourselves on reaching out to folks and helping them, whether they want to be certified with us or not, providing them some guidance and how to get started, or if they're having a problem, what that may look like, how we can help. But there's great opportunity in recovery housing across the state, but we're always happy to help people get on the path to certification and what that looks like.
And nobody needs a referral to you
Absolutely
or anything
not.
like that. They can just
Nope, just pick
go
up
on
the
your
phone and call.
website and find out. Can you just repeat that website again for
Sure,
us?
it's OKARR.org, OKARR.org.
Amanda Coldiron with Oklahoma Alliance for Recovery Resources. I appreciate you for joining us on Unintended Consequences today. I want to thank our guests for being here today. And please watch, share with a friend. If you know anybody that would like to have or use a home for a recovery home, or if you need someone that is struggling with addiction, there's help out there. And so we just want to really encourage you to help one another. And on behalf of Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform and Oklahomans Alliance for Recovery Resources, I just want to thank you for joining Unintended Consequences with OCJR. Thank you.